It was past midnight when I found myself in that familiar spiral, scrolling through my phone, letting the blue glow keep me company in the dark. My apartment was silent except for the faint hum of the fridge in the kitchen. I wasn't looking for anything in particular, just distracting myself from the loneliness that always feels heavier at night. Then, there it was. A photo. Ryan. My ex-husband. Sitting at a small outdoor cafe table, his arm draped casually around a woman. He was smiling, not the polite, half smiles I'd gotten used to in our last years together, but the kind of smile that reached his eyes. The kind I hadn't seen in, God, maybe a decade. I froze, my thumb hovering over the screen. My heart started pounding in a way that made no sense. We'd been divorced for months now. I was the one who ended it. I should be over it. But I wasn't. I zoomed in on the photo, my breath catching when I recognized her. Clare. His coworker from the accounting department. Then he got up, rinsed his plate, and went to bed. That was it. That was the last real conversation we had. I told myself I left for the right reasons, that I deserved more, that I was chasing happiness. But sitting there in the dark, staring at that picture, I couldn't help wondering if my reasons were ever as pure as I made them sound. And for the first time, I felt the weight of something I'd never let myself think before. What if I made the biggest mistake of my life, and he knew it before I did? It was a Tuesday night, one of those evenings where the silence at the dinner table felt so heavy I could hear the tick of the kitchen clock over the sound of my own chewing. Ryan was eating quietly, his eyes fixed on his plate. I had cooked pasta, though I wasn't even hungry. I don't know what possessed me in that moment. Maybe it was the monotony, maybe it was weeks of rehearsing this in my head, but before I could stop myself, I put my fork down and blurted out, "I'm done with you. I want a divorce." I remembered meeting her at a company Christmas party once. She'd been polite, warm even, but I'd brushed her off as irrelevant. Apparently, I'd been wrong. I leaned back into my couch, staring at the photo until my phone dimmed. My mind was a mess of emotions, confusion, anger, and something I hated to admit, jealousy. Not just because he was with someone else, but because he looked so alive. So happy. I took a deep breath, forcing my thoughts back to the moment it all ended. The night I told Ryan I wanted a divorce, I thought I was taking control of my life. I thought I'd feel free, empowered, like the strong, independent woman my friends always told me I was. I pictured him begging me to stay, telling me he couldn't live without me. I wanted that power, the power to decide if he was worth keeping. Instead, he just looked at me for a long moment, his expression unreadable, and said, "Okay." No questions. No fight. No visible pain. Just, "Okay." The words hung in the air like smoke. In my mind, I had pictured a scene, him looking shocked, maybe hurt, demanding to know why, begging me to reconsider. I imagined him finally realizing how distant we had become and promising to change. I wanted control. I wanted to feel wanted. But Ryan just looked up at me for a long moment, his expression unreadable, then simply said, "Okay." No raised voice. No anger. No tears. Just that one word. He picked up his plate, carried it to the sink, and started rinsing it. I sat there, frozen. "That's it? That's all you have to say?" I demanded, my voice sharper than I intended. He didn't turn around. "If that's what you want," he said quietly. "It wasn't supposed to go like this." I wanted a fight, an emotional outburst, something to confirm that I mattered enough to provoke a reaction. Instead, his calm made me feel small, almost invisible. Within 3 days, Ryan had moved into a friend's apartment. There was no long discussion, no drawn-out separation period. He signed the divorce papers the day they arrived without even reading them in detail. And just like that, he was gone. No late-night texts asking if I was okay. No showing up at my door with flowers. No emotional breakdowns or declarations of love. He only messaged me about practical matters, the utilities, the mortgage, the forwarding of mail, and even those were short and to the point. The strangest part. He seemed lighter. Freer. I told myself it was an act. That deep down, he was shattered and just hiding it well. That he would eventually break, realize he'd lost the best thing he ever had, and come crawling back. I believed it so fiercely that I almost convinced myself I'd see him on my doorstep any day now. But the days passed. Then weeks. And the silence between us didn't crack, it grew thicker, colder, until it felt like he had erased me completely. And that, more than anything, made me wonder if I had ever really known him at all. The first couple of weeks after Ryan left felt liberating. I went out with my friends more, stayed up late without worrying about waking anyone, spent my money on little indulgences without having to explain or justify them. I let men at bars buy me drinks, soaked up the attention, and even flirted back. It was fun, or at least, it felt like it should be. I told myself this was the life I had been missing. No routines, no compromises, no quiet husband sitting at the dinner table with nothing to say. But as the days turned into weeks, the shine wore off. The men I met were charming for a night but gone by morning. Conversations never went deeper than surface-level banter. I realized no one looked at me the way Ryan once did, with that steady, unshakable kind of loyalty that I had taken for granted. And Ryan. He disappeared. No cryptic social media posts, no attention-seeking updates. Just silence. His accounts were still active, but nothing new. Not even a new profile picture. I convinced myself it meant he was miserable, too heartbroken to even pretend otherwise. A month passed. One night, after a particularly empty date with a guy whose name I'd already forgotten, I sat on my couch scrolling through old photos of Ryan and me. We looked so young in those pictures, so hopeful. On impulse, I thought about texting him. Just something casual, "Hey, how are you?" Nothing loaded, nothing that would give away how much I missed him. But before I could type the words, my phone buzzed. A message from our mutual friend, Jess. "Have you seen this?" Attached was a photo. Ryan. Sitting at a small cafe table, sunlight spilling across his face, his hand resting casually near a coffee cup. And next to him, Clare. His coworker. She was leaning in slightly, laughing at something he'd just said. They looked comfortable. Close. And Ryan, he was smiling. That real, genuine smile I hadn't seen in years. My stomach twisted. A hot wave of jealousy and panic surged through me, so strong I almost dropped my phone. It wasn't just that he was with someone else, it was that he looked truly happy. For the first time, the finality of what I'd done hit me. Ryan wasn't coming back. The photo of Ryan and Claire gnawed at me for days. I tried to push it out of my mind, but it was like a splinter under my skin. Every time I thought about something else, it worked its way back in. So I started digging. At first, I told myself it was harmless curiosity. I scrolled back through old text threads with Ryan, looking for clues I might have missed. I noticed how, toward the end, his replies had been shorter, less warm. No "good morning" texts. No "love you" out of nowhere. I had chalked it up to stress at the time. Next, I started casually bringing him up in conversations with our mutual friends, pretending I was just wondering how he was doing. Most were polite but vague, "He's fine," or "Yeah, I've seen him around." But one night, after a glass of wine loosened her tongue, Jess finally told me the truth. "Maya. Ryan checked out a long time before you ended things," she said gently. "He just didn't want to be the one to pull the plug. He was waiting for you to say the word so he could leave without feeling like the bad guy." Her words felt like a slap. Jess went on. Apparently, Claire had been a supportive friend to Ryan when things between us got cold. They'd talk at work, sometimes grab lunch, but it had never crossed into anything romantic while we were married. She swore on it. It wasn't until after the divorce was finalized that they started dating. Which meant Ryan hadn't replaced me in a month. He'd just already moved on in his heart long before I had. Suddenly, his calm "okay" that night made perfect sense. It wasn't indifference. It was relief. The more I learned, the worse it got. Ryan had just been promoted at work, the kind of step up that came with a raise, better hours, and opportunities to travel. Jess mentioned he and Claire were planning a trip to Italy later this year. Italy. The very place I had always shot down whenever Ryan suggested it. I'd said it was too expensive, too much hassle. I'd rolled my eyes at his daydreams of sitting in little Italian cafes, watching the world go by. And now, he was going to do it, with her. It was in that moment I realized something I didn't want to admit. Ryan hadn't just survived losing me. He had built a life I couldn't touch anymore, one that was better than anything I'd given him. And I was the one who handed him the freedom to do it. I used to tell people I left Ryan because things just weren't working anymore. It sounded clean, rational, respectable. The truth. I didn't leave because of some unforgivable mistake he made. I left because I thought I could do better. I thought excitement and passion were somewhere out there, waiting for me, if only I had the courage to walk away. And I told myself Ryan would always be there in the background, that if I ever regretted it, I could just turn around and he'd be waiting. But I was wrong. I see it now, so clearly it almost hurts to breathe. His quiet loyalty wasn't a lack of love, it was love, the rare kind that doesn't need to shout to be real. I'd mistaken his steadiness for complacency, his calm for disinterest. And maybe, in the end, I was the one who became everything I accused him of being: distracted, ungrateful, blind. Looking at that photo of him and Claire, laughing over coffee, I realized something I wish I had understood years ago. Ryan was capable of joy, adventure, and deep connection. He just needed someone who saw him as more than a safety net, someone who wanted to stand beside him instead of constantly looking over his shoulder for something better. It stings to know that person isn't me. Worse, it's knowing that I had the chance, years of chances, to be that person, and I squandered every one. Now, he's living the kind of life I never let him have. Traveling. Smiling. Being truly seen. And I'm just another chapter in his past, one he's long since stopped rereading. I wanted him to beg me to stay. I wanted him to prove I was worth fighting for. But what I didn't ask myself was, what if he'd already fought for me long before I noticed? What if he'd been ready to go all along? That's the part that keeps me up at night. Sometimes, the person you leave is the one who grows into everything you wanted, just in time to give it all to someone else. And there's no way to undo it. If you're listening to this and you're standing at the edge of your own relationship, thinking they'll always be there if you change your mind, stop. Look closer. Because one day, you might find yourself like me, staring at a photo, realizing you didn't just lose them. You set them free. And they'll never need you again.